Hello YouTube, hello fans, this is Daniel, back once again for another video, this time focusing on the moon in Pisces. Now the moon in Pisces is a little bit different than most moon signs. We think about the moon as being, of course, the inner self, the soul, the true being within us. It's in fact probably the most important placement within, the natal chart. If you watch some of my other videos, I've indicated that before. Um, the thing that makes Moon and Pisces a little bit different, though, is that Pisces, by its nature, is a sign that goes beyond the mortal realm. It goes beyond sort of our natural trappings that we associate with how we deal with the mundane world. Most other signs have certain facets about them that lend them to certain characteristics. But Pisces is a little bit different. Pisces is an incredibly imaginative sign. The mind, really just the way that a Pisces thinks, especially the moon in Pisces, which is in fact our mentality, our psyche, if you will, our inner self, our soul, our inner being. When all of this gets intertwined with the energy that is Pisces, things take a little bit bigger step. They move a little bit farther forward than they would in most signs. Most people with the moon in Pisces, they tend to be, very psychic people. They tend to be people who, can really read the energy of all that's around them. And if we imagine for a moment that, the fish, in the ocean, it's exposed to everything around it. It has no recourse, it has no defenses really. It has no way of shielding itself from the outside environment. And people with the moon in Pisces are very much the same thing. They have no real way of counteracting the world around them. And so really their only way to deal with this is in the realm of illusion, because as you know, Pisces is associated with both the planets Neptune principally and Jupiter kind of as a secondary. Um, and so with this, we have to look a little bit deeper. We have to really delve in a little bit more unconventionally, as would befit the sign Pisces. And really just look at the moon in Pisces as being something that is a little bit beyond what we might imagine, a moon sign to capture. Really more than just being part of our inner self and kind of how we think about things on our own. If you have the moon in Pisces, you're going to be someone who feels really deep about just about anything and everything. You're going to have a natural empathy towards everyone around you. You're going to lend your emotional state, to really, anyone who's within your sphere. And, it's going to cause you a bit of concern. It's going to cause you a bit of, um, a little bit of a mental breakdown at times, just because you're going to be exposing yourself to so much and so many people, and you're going to be looking at things from so many different angles that really, you have no sense of engaging your own feelings. And so, that's where kind of the element of isolation that's associated with not only Pisces, but, its patron house, the 12th house, as well as Neptune comes into play. And so you may find yourself, wanting to pull back, wanting to, you know, tear away from, the psychic energy of everyone around you and really just be alone. Really just, be, have a contemplative state, almost a monastic way of living at times, if not, only temporarily, so that you can begin to kind of recapture your own thoughts and look into yourself and, really just recuperate because you really taken everything from everyone around you. And, this can make matters, very tough for you. You have times where, those close to you, as, you may or may not know, the moon is indicated with the mother, the female energy, that is Cancer, as associated with the moon. Um, the moon in Pisces is in and of itself a good placement. In and of itself, the moon experiences a very harmonious relationship with the constellation Cancer, and its associated planets Jupiter and Neptune. Where people with this placement run into trouble, however, is, as I indicated before, where you're going to have moments where you're just taking in too much. You're experiencing too much of what everyone else has to offer. Um, I mean, if you can imagine, somebody working, let's say as, a bartender or something, and you were to have this placement, I mean, everyone would be coming at you with, all kinds of information about their lives and about what's happened to them throughout the day, throughout the week, and you would just be sucking all that up. And really, there's a psychic energy that exists between you and others, where people are going to pick up on that. They're going to pick up on your desire to get to know them on that level. There's going to be a certain openness that people will avail themselves to you about. And you really, whether you like it or not, will be exposing yourself to a lot of facts and information on an emotional and a spiritual level that really maybe you don't want to have. I mean, by virtue of other placements, or maybe you want it, but as well you realize that it can be harmful. And so there is an instinct there that should come into play, where you really have to take a step back and you have to look at things in terms of what can I deal with. I mean, I am this kind of person. Speaking hypothetically, I'm the kind of person that takes in these emotions, that takes in all of these very hard stories from others, and I mean, what do I do with them? And really, just you being that ear, just you being that person that listens is quite enough. I mean, it's not something where you have to take in the hardest facts, and the hardest stories from everyone that you encounter, but rather just realize that you are someone who has the ability to reflect on and experience the emotions of others as if you were the one experiencing them. And this is part of that imaginative nature of this placement. It's part of the psychic energy that is this placement. Spirituality, dreams, philosophy, very deep thinking. I mean, the moon in Pisces is a placement that wants to experience life in terms of what is the meaning of life, in terms of what is important in life. And really, when it comes to the mundane world, when it comes to materialism, when it comes to, things in our everyday life, the moon in Pisces wants to find meaning. The moon in Pisces wants to be able to understand life in terms of, this is me doing what I have to do in this life to gain a karmic understanding of myself and of the world around me. And even, moon and Pisces people that aren't particularly religious or spiritual, they will still feel this energy. They will still feel that, what they do in their daily life has to matter on some level. And so really, you're going to find that, if you have this placement, or someone that has this placement, they're going to be people who they want to take on occupations, not necessarily for the money. It's going to be occupations that allow them to project that energy out into the world, and then to reap the benefits of being a positive receptor for others. I mean, this includes jobs, like massage therapy, for example. This includes jobs in social work. This includes jobs with nonprofit organizations, charities, churches or other, religious institutions. Working as a member of the clergy, or some kind of a counseling staff, of some kind, in a social service venue. You want to be able to take that energy that you have within you, that desire to relate to others, and you want to apply it in some way. And this is going to give you meaning. This is going to give you a sense of fulfillment in life in general. And this sort of creative energy, this sort of creative, spiritual dynamic can also manifest, in things such as writing and art, and even culinary arts. I mean, the ability to design and create things that, have some kind of benefit to society, really is a hallmark of this placement. There's always a desire to, hear the hard luck stories of others. there's a tremendous desire to empathize with others. And, I mean, not just, close friends and family. We're talking about, everybody really when we talk about this placement. There is a desire, to be somebody that is a shoulder to cry on, that is, an ear to listen. It's part of the dynamic of, of this energy. Um, there's a sense of feeling a connection with, a world beyond. I mean, Pisces is, and the 12th house as well, and I'll explain this in later videos. The 12th house, Pisces, Neptune, all of these things kind of come full circle with the idea of an ether, the idea that there is a world beyond. And so, even in looking into a natal chart, I mean, as you go through it, when you get to that 12th house, you're no longer really talking about this world. You're no longer really talking about things that are part of this life. I mean, we can go through, we can say that, the first house is the self. The second house has to do with your money, your material possessions. The third house, your communications, your siblings. Fourth house, your home, and so on and so on and so on. But when we talk about the 12th house, we're talking about your karmic energy. We're talking about your karmic footprint in this life. And there's kind of an unspoken innuendo there about past lives, future lives, karmic debt, things of that nature. And I mean, it's a very powerful statement to speak on, but few astrologers care to talk about this. But when we think about the moon in Pisces, we can really begin to think about figures such as Jesus Christ. And I say this because the moon in Pisces offers a self-sacrificing energy. It offers an energy that wants to almost take on the debts of other people, the spiritual debts, the emotional debts, and take them in within themselves, and in a sense, take that karmic energy and turn it into something positive. And so when we look at religious figures, it's very, very easy to relate them back to to this placement. And oftentimes these figures have connections to Pisces, the 12th house, Jupiter in particular. And so really, I mean, it all boils down to the fact that this placement is not at all about the money. I mean, they are probably the most true, honest, and open people that you could ever meet. And if you know people with this placement in your own life, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know that as the moon swims through this constellation Pisces, it's taking that nurturing Cancerian energy that the moon has on its own, and then it's melding it to then become more Piscean, to then become more of a dreamer, to then become more of someone who is, outside of this world, outside of the mundane material, get up, go to work, make money, buy things, pass away. I mean, for a moon in Pisces, this is simply not enough. There has to be more to life. There has to be more on a spiritual and a philosophical level. And throughout life, if you have this placement or people with this placement, you're going to find that they're searching for this. They're always searching for this higher meaning, this higher understanding, this connection to God, if you will. And really, I mean, this is a defining factor in their life, and that's why, as I said before, they take on these professions that relate back to that. They take on, different, social, events. They take on different, activities, hobbies that are both creative and spiritual, and allow them to contemplate that higher realm, to contemplate that higher meaning, and really to try to define life in terms of what is important, what truly matters. And at the end of the day, they're always searching for that. And of course, these are unattainable answers, but these are things that people with this placement are compelled to search for. They're compelled to begin to understand, why are we here? What are we doing here? What are we supposed to do? And generally, because of the nature of this placement, they tend to think that part of it, or at least a major component of it, is to treat others fairly, to treat others with kindness, to treat others in a moral sense. you know, I mean, as you know, of course, you know, this placement, you know, goes back to, you know, a very, you know, moralistic sort of behavior. Um, on the negative side, however, you know, I mean, if you have this placement and you experience, you know, too much negativity, you experience too much in the way of, you know, negative people, people who are, you know, too aggressive, people who are just, you know, just too rough. People with this placement can begin to feel a tearing down. They can begin to feel a almost a psychic draining, if you will. And so, you know, that's where, you know, there is a danger of things such as alcoholism. There is a danger of things such as, you know, um, addictive drug use. And, you know, I mean, it can be, you know, a ton of things. But there is, you know, that since they lack the protection of, you know, of the Cancer moon, and they lack the defensive fixed energy of the Scorpio moon, they're left really with their only coping mechanism is to elude themselves. And so this is how we wind up eluding ourselves, you know, in this placement is, you know, through drug, drink, or some kind of activity that allows them to escape from this reality, to escape from all of its hardships. And even in that sense, be able to continue to contemplate the here and the now and the what and the why and all of these deep questions that they're yearning to answer, that they're yearning to find meaning for. Um, Lastly, what I would like to talk about is, you know, especially with this placement, there is a need really to have compatible people in your life. There is a need to be around people that are going to support and not trample on your desires, your drives, your energy, because it's so soft and it's so delicate. And it needs somebody who's going to understand that and not only understand, but take care of that and nurture that. Um, you may have heard before, you know, that, you know, there's an old adage in astrology that, you know, opposites attract, that, you know, it's, you know, your opposite sign is, you know, your better half. And, you know, this is the kind of person that you should be going for. And I'll tell you right now that I'm an astrologer that does not prescribe, you know, that sort of thing. To me, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And there's a whole nother area of astrology, you know, called synergy, which has to do with relationships and things of that nature. And, you know, that's a whole another ball of wax. But you know, just the tip of the iceberg, you know, as it relates to this sign, you know, you want to look for partners and companions who are going to benefit this energy, you know, if you have this placement. And so really you're going to be wanting to look for other water signs. You're going to be wanting to look for other water moon signs, that, you know, primarily being, you know, Cancer moon and Scorpio moon, you know, because both of these signs have a depth to them. Both of these signs have an empathy. Both of these signs and placements are going to understand the Piscean natures and drives better than any other. You know, I mean, the opposing end of the moon in Cancer is the moon in Virgo. And really, I mean, if you take everything that I've said about moon in Pisces and turn it upside down, you have a moon in Virgo. Um, and this is a different placement that I'll, you know, look at later on. And it, you know, all the placements have their positives and negatives. But really, you know, when you want to experience, you know, a positive, harmonious relationship, or a friendship or a companionship, or, you know, whatever association you have with another human being, and you have this placement, it is critical. You know, I mean, and I won't say this about, you know, all placements, but for this placement in particular, it is critical to have people in your life that are going to complement you and are going to promote your dreams and promote your desires and drives and goals. And so once again, you know, I mean, if we look to, you know, the moon in Cancer as well as the moon in Scorpio, we can then begin to say that, you know, this placement, moon in Pisces, will have found someone who will nurture and assist them in achieving their desires of finding that higher meaning, of finding God, of finding the answers to life. You know, they'll be on that journey with you, and they'll enjoy it, and and you'll help them grow, and it'll be a positive experience all around. And really, I mean, you know, this is kind of, you know, what it's all about when it comes to the moon sign, when it comes to the inner self, is to find that inner wholeness, to find that inner fulfillment. And so it's an especially important point with moon and Pisces, because that drive is always going to be there. And it really, it's never going to end. So this has been my analysis of the moon in Pisces. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And I will see you next time for another video. Thank you and good night.